to make sure we have a very, very good year. And one of the things that's key for me is financial freedom or financial independence. I want us to get to a point where we can make life decisions without being overly stressed about the financial fallout of those decisions. Yeah. Are you prepared financially for anything that life throws your way? You have no debt, you have money in the bank, you're investing for the future. I mean, you have control of your finances instead of being controlled by them. And as always, our very good friend that we always call on for financial advice is the managing partner at Trust Consult Limited, Mr. Charles Mensah, our business consultant. And he's here again to actually help us make sure our finances are in check this year. Mr. Mensah.
Hello,
Happy
Lexis.
New Year.
Happy New Year, my brother. Happy New Year.
You look very well today.
My
goodness.
We're trying.
I mean, my folks need to see you in the dapper suit that you're wearing today. My goodness. That's actually the sign of a man who's managing his finances well.
Thank you. You got that right.
Because, man, I want to wear that suit someday. That's a beautiful one.
You can always have it.
Anyway, so good to see you, Mr. Mensah.
Thank you for having me.
As always, when we call on you, especially at the beginning of the year when we're just about to, put things in place to have a good year, you always are very kind enough to come by. And today, like I mentioned earlier, we want to start a conversation about managing our finances. We want to achieve financial freedom in 2025. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people made a headway in 2024, but this year, dear, by fire, by force, we have to make sure that things work out well.
Yeah.
One of the components that I was looking at, and I think I spoke about it on air last week, was the fact that people need to consider multiple streams of income and all of that. And I think it's one of the things that you've always, suggested and advised people to consider. But before we even get to talk about, the multiple streams of income, how do we even manage what we have already? I mean, expenditure control. Really, let's talk about financial freedom in its entirety.
Lexis, thank you really for having me. Financial freedom, indeed, once it's freedom, it means that the ability to do whatever you want financially, and you are not limited. You would never be limited once you have financial freedom. So anybody who has a financial freedom, it means that he can decide to do whatever he wants to do. Money in problem.
Okay.
But to have that financial freedom, you may have put some structures in the past or currently, because financial freedom is going to come out of the monies that are passing through your hands and the monies that are leaving. So your income and expenditure, that control, if you have a control over both the income and expenditure, your financial freedom is guaranteed, because the excess between the income and the expenditure, you throw it into your investment. So it is the investment that will take off you. So around that time, you say your money is working for you. So now you are working for your money. And about around that stage, your money is working for you, because you may have invested in some businesses, in some trading houses, in some rental, in some every other thing. You are doing Uber, you are doing, Okada, all those little businesses are now fetching you money. So you are not limited. So when there's an issue to be discussed, you are not limited. And that's where you say, I've arrived. My financial freedom is here. But you have to go through a certain processes.
Okay.
Now, the processes entails, one, either having a skill to earn the money. Either you are printing your own money, in other words, you are working for yourself, or you are working for the printer, the one who prints the money. So you're either working for somebody or you're working for yourself. Now, if you're working for yourself, it means that it requires a certain skills, a certain qualification, a certain analysis of the market and the services that you are providing. Indeed, if you don't have that particular skill, there's no way you can sell. So if Lexis want to be an MC, then he needs a certain skill to sell, because you cannot just walk in and preach the gospel of God. You are MC, so you are focused on certain. So you have to have a skill for that, and that's what you've been paid for. So you have to have a skill or qualification. The other one is that skill that you want to sell, because you want to print your own money, maybe you're not ready because financially you cannot invest, or the amount involved in setting up the business is way above your budget. So you go and work for somebody and then practice with that person and then earn some income from that person and control your expenditure once the person is paying you, and then save a bit towards your own business in the end.
Right.
Because your focus is financial freedom. And the goal is that I would do this at a certain age. I would do this at a certain time T. So you want to make sure that this year, for instance, you're going to have a balanced lifestyle, so that all the monies that comes through your hand will be the same as will leave. You will not borrow from any friend or cousins of yours. You will not buy things that are nice but you don't need. So that's your focus for this year. Or you would get married for this year. Not that 3 persons are getting married, so you rush into it. So all your goals have to be done right. If you rush in your goals, then you won't have your financial freedom. But if you plan it, then you work towards it. Now, 2 things that you need to look at. You're either controlling your expenditure or you are fast-tracking your revenue streams. These 2 things, it takes skill to do that.
Okay.
Because if you can't control expenditure, any money that comes through your hands, Lexis, you will spend it. Any money that comes to your hand, you will spend it because you don't have the skill to control, to manage it. So you need to have that management skill, and that requires a discipline. A discipline here refers to a situation where anything above 50 cedis for you, I'm just using that as an example loosely. You are going to work. You don't want to go with a card. Neither do you want to use your Momo. So fiscal 50 cedis in your pocket. That's your spend for the day. Anything beyond that, you are not buying. So where it is that you take your Trotsky or you take your Uber or whatever you take, and you are working within your 50 cedis. Should you come to work and there's a windfall, somebody dashes you money, because you didn't plan for that income to come through your hand, if you are not careful, you are not disciplined, immediately Lexis says, oh, I like your jacket, so please get 50 cedis. If you are not careful, you will spend that 50 cedis. Immediately you spend that 50 cedis, your expenditure lifestyle for that day had risen from 50 to 100. And the following day, you would like to maintain that. And that will lead to borrowing. So you need to have that discipline that if I'm spending 50 cedis, I would always hold it in cash. Or if I'm spending 50 cedis through my Momo, I'll put a limit of 50 cedis on the Momo. Or any other thing, anything beyond that, I will not hold in it. And I will not call anybody to borrow from, unless it is an extreme emergency.
Okay.
So when you have that discipline, by the time you leave work, or by the time you leave your private business work site, whatever excess money that was unplanned must be kept somewhere.
Okay.
Because any windfall that you get today, there's going to be a challenge coming tomorrow. Sometimes we don't even understand this, because things that you didn't even expect, you get a gift. Somebody dashes you money that you didn't understand. Mind you, you would get an expenditure coming
That you don't understand.
that you don't understand. But because they gave you the income and you didn't keep it, that expenditure comes and you are confused. That's how it works. So yours is to focus on your expenditure control. Indeed, this morning I had a little chat with my team trying to establish their average spending for a month. And what I got when I was talking to them, there's a group that live with their parents. So naturally, there's no rent payment, there's no electricity payment, and there's no water payment. They may contribute to food. And when we total it up, including coming to work, it came to about over 2,000 cedis a month. So I said to them, look, that rent, electricity, and the water you are not paying is a notional cost. Please factor it in. Today you are not paying, but tomorrow, what if your parents says you are 26, you are of age, please go and look for a single room? Because you had not made provision of that expenditure around that time, now you're going to look for it and you'll give you a headache. So add it into expenditure that if I was going to rent a 2-bedroom house, a chairman hall, I'll pay 400 cedis. So whether you are paying it or not, that notional money, that notional cost should be set aside.
Okay.
The electricity and water and other things and food that your parents gives you, please make a provision for it. So plus or minus 1,000 cedis, set it aside. So when you add all those expenditure, it gives you, let's say, 2,900. That is your lifestyle expenditure per month. And the critical question that you ask is that, how is it funded? How am I going to fund it? And that's what you will talk about next time when we meet about the multiple streams of income. So first is to establish your expenditure. Establishing your expenditure, please, whether you are paying for it or somebody is paying for you, include it. Because tomorrow that person who is paying for you there will say, I'm tired of paying for you. Mm-hmm. So you have to include it. Credit, unit that you buy on phone. If indeed you are consuming like 50 cedis or 100 cedis a month, it is high time you make provision for it because your friends are buying for you. Oh, can you give me credit? These are all expenditure lines that your lifestyle have been built upon. Mm-hmm. So if you don't look and calculate it properly, tomorrow when the person who gives you the that who funds it doesn't give you the money, you have a problem. And that's where we must look at all the line items every day. Indeed, when you come to work and you patronize your friend's food, one or two persons, you eat together. So you are not spending. Fair enough. You are not spending. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. The 5th day, your colleagues are going to like that. Today, you are buying the food.
Yeah.
And because you didn't make provision for it, it creates a gap. Because you didn't pay for the food, and yet you've used the money for something else. So anything notional, anything gift, because you need it to support your lifestyle, you must make provision for it so that you'll be fine wanting. And that will give you a totality of your expenditure. And whilst you are doing it, if you are working for somebody or you are selling yourself, you need to improve your skill. Either by going to classes, either by doing practical things, or by doing things that you to enhance your income. Because else, by the time you catch certain age, you'll be in trouble.
So what you've actually described, I can say, can be budgeting.
Yes.
Right? Is that what we've just spoken about?
Yes. It's a line. It's your line of expenditure, and then you can decide to put an amount on each line, and that becomes what people call budget.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So you need to identify your line of expenditure, what you are spending your money on, or what you'll be spending your money on, and then when you put figures around it over the period, then it becomes your budget. That will be your guide as you thrive. So once you have the budget, then the next critical question is what we call, how are you going to fund your expenditure? Are you funding it with your own salary? Are you funding it with your work? Or are you funding it with borrowing from friends? And I will encourage borrowing for 2025. Because it's a big problem that you have. Once you start with borrowing for 2025, my brother, every other month you pay this month and then you borrow for February and then you go and pay in March and all those. It will be a cycle that you will never complete.
So 2025, no borrowing.
Not at all.
No borrowing.
If you should borrow, then you are buying an asset, like something that you can hold, something that you can sell. Should the lender, should the person who gave you the money come and then I want my money back, then you can sell that particular asset. So don't borrow, but if you have to borrow, buy an asset, nothing more. An asset here I'm referring to things that you can hold, things that you can touch, a television set, a car, if deposit, land. So anything that you cannot hold, please don't borrow to buy it. Okay. You have a problem.
Well, there you go. If you have any questions, call us 0302216541, or you can send us a WhatsApp message on 055-1111-997. Now, if we're saying no borrowing, then I think we should also say no lending.
No, there are some people naturally who are in the business of lending because they earn interest on their things. So I cannot prescribe that. I cannot prescribe that no lending because they are in the business of lending. Yes.
So you know when this one walks in and he's laughing and the question is diabolic.
Oh dear.
You said that. You know, you said you shouldn't borrow to buy anything you can't hold.
Yes.
So, can you borrow to marry because you can hold her?
I'll answer you nicely. I'd always preached this, that please, if you borrow to marry, that means you are not ready.
You're not ready to hold.
We are not ready to marry. Because when the lender comes and knock at your door, that come and service your debt, you probably turn to your spouse and say, you caused this debt. And around that time, there might be a small argument. And they say, oh, this if I hadn't married you, all this debt wouldn't have risen.
Yeah.
So, please, if you are going to borrow to marry, you are not ready. And those who says, I am borrowing to marry because I've invited Lexis and Co. When they can, they'll give me gifts. Please forget it. Because those are incidentals.
They come and shower you with money.
With money. No. What if you raise that day? What if you raise that day? So please, don't do that. Get ready. Be ready before you get married. Don't borrow to get married. Yes.
So this year, no borrowing. The lending too, if we lend you money, we'll put interest on it.
Most definitely. Once you have the licenses, because
oh, but I mean, our friends do come to say,
no,
Charlie, give me.
It's against the. You see, that's why sometimes when you borrow from your friend, they can refuse to pay. Lend, because
so we have to direct them to the bank then.
Yes, direct them to the bank. Yes, because they do have and then the individual money lenders, you have to be approved by the CID Act. So they all have some rules.
Okay.
So if you are giving it to a friend, you are giving it to a friend. Hopefully he will pay. But if you're going to structure yourself that you lend money for interest to be charged, then do the proper thing.
The ones that I lend, man, they didn't pay. So
there you go.
And I can't go and catch them too.
There you go.
Because they are my friends.
Correct.
Okay, so if you have any question, you can call us 0302216541. We're talking about financial freedom, and 2025 is our year. Yes, we need to be very smart in taking decisions about our finances. Cashman sent me a message and says, please ask him which investment would he advise with 40,000 CDs in our unpredictable economic indicators now that you are 40 years in Ghana.
Okay, so my friend, what I will advise you immediately is to look for a mutual fund and buy some units within a mutual fund. The mutual fund are managed by professionals. So it's a combination of loans, shares, and corporate bonds and things like that. So when you buy a mutual fund, because it's a cocktail, at least at the end of the day, averagely you earn some money on it. The money is earned through the price increase. So when you buy a mutual fund, today is 10 cedis. By the time the year ends, it's probably 15 cedis. So you can reduce the numbers by selling some, so it is there.
Okay.
One thing that I want to add quickly, because some by now are married and have kids, but I'll stick to those who are married. It is important that now you focus on a joint budget planning. I'm not saying that joint account opening, but more of the expenditure side. So if you and your spouse can have a talk and agree that this month or this week, the amount that we are going to spend is this, then we all agree what we are going to use the money for. Then we can decide later on the percentage or the ratio of contribution. If the man decides that he's funding it for this week and you fund next week, so be it. But at least have an agreement that we are spending this amount on these items this week. Once you do that, you won't have any challenge. But here it is that your wife is spending, you are also equally spending, and at the end of the day, you buy things in the house that you thought that your wife will need. Okay, but he doesn't need it, and then she also will buy something that was cheap because he thinks, oh, these things are cheap, let me buy it for Kojo at home, and the Kojo say, oh, I didn't need it, I also bought some. Once you plan it together and you are spending, you will spend out of the plan. When you spend out of the plan, there's not going to be any crisis, and that's very key. So you don't have argument.
Okay.
So your argument will be the funding of our total expenditure for this week. So we don't have a situation where since we got married, I'm the one spending all the money. Oh, they say so. I'm the one bringing all the money. You don't have that, especially the young ones. Now I've been married for 30 years, so I have the experience there. So you need the young one. You need to have a sit down and look at the expenditure. If your spouse, you look at your spouse's face and he's introduced expenditure line, but he's not introducing any revenue lines, he himself will minimize it without you saying that cut it. Because line 1, we are paying rent. Line 2, we are paying electricity. Line 3, fuel for work. By the time you are mentioning and put the figures there, and it comes to funding, and she's not funding or he's not funding, he will say, "Oh, let's cancel line 1."
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessary. It's because contribution is not there, and therefore it's helping you to minimize. So have a go at it. Okay. Don't be too pompous and say that, "Oh, don't worry, don't," because things are tough. Don't try to impress anybody. When you receive visitors, either on the man or on the woman's side, don't try to impress. Because when you impress, they will leave and go. They might think that that's a normal lifestyle that you people are living. The following week, they will come. And they will create more problem for you as a family.
Okay. Jesse says, Lexis, we are only to borrow to buy assets. Meanwhile, my rent just expired and I'm being ejected and I want to go and borrow from the bank to pay advance. What about that?
He didn't plan way ahead because you knew that you live in the house from on the 1st or on the 2nd. Definitely by the end of the month you will pay. So he missed a plan there. When you miss a plan, something could have cost it. So around that time, because maybe somebody delayed in paying your salary or your invoice has been delayed, on that score, then you can say you can borrow because an income is expected. So you can use that one to go and pay so that they don't eject you. But you shouldn't sit down for it to happen because you knew from day one that end of the month rent will be paid, electricity will be paid, water will be paid, transport will be paid, that kind of thing. So you must know things ahead of time and plan towards it.
Okay. Lexis, please ask Ms. Mensah, is it prudent to invest in Ghana now, considering what has been done to our national players? John from Rich. I'm sure you heard the story, eh?
No, which one? No.
Oh, no, I hear they invested some money, that some 10,000 CDs for them about 15 years ago, and it's matured this year, and they got 60,000 or something of the sort.
Oh, dear. I mean, you see, that's the first principle of investment. Once you invest, you must receive statements on regular basis. If they were receiving statements on regular basis, they would have known that they will get 60 at the end of 15 years. They would have known. But since they were not monitoring, they were not receiving statements, then somebody else could have been, mismanage their funds. I think they should probably ask for statements.
But then the question really John was asking is it prudent to invest in Ghana considering the
most definitely. You see, one of the things that we have to have our mind to is that we have a stable environment, but people will say it's a CD and a dollar, but we're in Ghana and the returns in the dollar terms in the CD terms are okay. Now you ask yourself, what do I invest in? You can either invest in an approved business. When I say approved business, proving an approved business that will earn you some income. Some 5 years ago, I trained people to go into distribution of food, like dispatch services. Mm-hmm. Today, the guy is 15 motorbikes delivering food across Accra. There was a bunch of students then at Legon. I encouraged them to do Uber during their free time on campus. Just campus. Legon is big. Yeah. So just campus. Today, they've graduated. Two are working in the bank, but the Uber is working.
Wow.
So there are some businesses that you can look at it critically. Now you invest in it. You may not directly be running it, but you've invested in it, and the structures have been put in place. These are the things that I do for my living. Structures are put in place. Either you are a secretary to the account, or either you are the revenue will come to one account, and the expenditure will be handled by them, and then you transfer from the revenue to the account. There are so many strategies that you can use to monitor, to track. Else, if you don't put that strategy, you think that I invested 10,000 CDs and the guy just swerved me and I have spent all my money. So it's all about the planning and execution and using people who have done it before to give you an advice.
Okay. Well, this is just part one of our conversation. There's a lot more that we need to talk about. I think of key interest to me is how to, build multiple streams of income. And we'll have a look at that conversation next week, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Our financial consultant is Mr. Charles Mensah of Trust Consult. And I'm grateful you came by today. We'll see you next week.
Thank you
for this very important conversation. This is Joy 99.7 FM, and we'll be having a conversation about financial freedom after we the SC in Yiska.